Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tanisha Laverne Grant with Black in America. And as always, I am super excited to bring you guests to the platform. And today is someone who is very near and dear to me. As you know, anybody who works in entertainment or anybody who has entrepreneur endeavors, has a team around them. And this gentleman is somebody who is a close and personal. He is a part of my team. He is a go-to guru of mine. A dear friend, actually. I've known Mr. Ron Donovan for quite some time. And to many of you, he is a shoe designer and accessory designer. But he is coming into the life coaching space. And so I'm just honored beyond measure to have him on the platform this afternoon. Ron, how are you? You look good, brother. How are you? He is a soul
Darling, I am
strategist.
well.
Wait a minute.
Hey, you know what?
Let me get this language right. So you are a soul strategist, outcome, get this language, you guys, outcome actualization coach. Get that. Outcome, that's one word. Actualization, that's the other. And coach. So Ron, you are just, listen, this man is just, he's just about that life. How are you, Ron?
I am doing well, darling. Inspired by all you're doing out on the West Coast. I
I'm
love seeing
trying.
everything that's going on. And as we always say, things are popping. It's lovely to see folks turning lemons into lemonade, and that's where we are. We are having to make all types of pivots and and just adjustments during this period. I mean, we're establishing new norms.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful thing.
yeah. My biggest goal, Ron, is to make sure that I'm getting the lesson of this moment, this COVID-19. You know, um, there's just so much that remains to be seen with this virus, and the only thing we can control is ourselves. Which is why I'm so excited to have you on the platform this afternoon, to really talk about how important it is that in an environment, and even pre-COVID, you can't control what somebody else is doing. You can't control what is happening in the world. You can only control like your response and how you navigate to what is happening around you. So when we talk about you, being a soul strategist and an outcome actualization coach, let's just talk about how important it is for people to be able to not react but to respond.
I think that's a great distinction. Um, I'll start with a little bit of an antidote. I had my primary business. I've always been an entrepreneur, and my primary business is my Ron Donovan footwear and accessory brand. It is a luxury footwear brand that I've run for many years. I've built other businesses, helped people build other businesses, and I've actually designed for other brands. But this is my primary business. But over the years, I've also been very active in mentoring and coaching and just sharing my experiences.
Mm,
And I wouldn't even call it coaching. I've just been sharing my experiences and the wisdom that I've gleaned from those experiences. So as COVID kicked in, my production is predominantly in Italy.
yeah.
So I got shut down relatively early. I started out with a great November and December 2019 and was looking like everybody else into 2020 vision, the transformative year and all of this stuff, all the cliches
Yeah.
and I was jacked. And around January 15th, it all went south and it continued to go south. And I just was like, well, what's going on here? And I guess around mid mid March, it
Mm,
hit me. I've been talking about this being a transformative year. Oftentimes to transform, things have to be purged.
yeah.
And once I realized that many of the things that were shifting and purging were putting me in another place. And as you said, I started to kind of pivot and pay attention to, what was happening. In light of all that was going on, I was getting more calls, less about shoes and more about, hey, I'm going through this. What do you feel about this? Or how do I deal with this? Or everybody was coming to me with things and I'm going, okay. And finally, one day someone's like, you should really do this, seriously. And I kind of went, nah. But the person that mentioned it was a gentleman that I go to for advice. So
Wow.
I truly was an older gentleman, retired, and I started to make the pivot. I started to really study and started to think about what I had been doing. And I started to think about and ask the questions of people who were coming to me as to why.
Yeah.
What was it that you get from me, and what makes me me, basically? And I started to settle in, and time has just kind of evolved, and I figured out kind of what my focus is, really what my area is. And you hit it on the head. I figured that I am an outcome actualization coach. Basically, I can help someone actualize any goal that they might have over the spectrum of personal evolution.
Mm.
However, my primary focuses are dating and relationships. Okay.
Yeah,
These are
and I
areas
have
that
come to
have
you.
quite a bit of
I'm
experience.
always coming to you over dating and relationships. Okay. We have spent countless hours. We have clocked some serious man time talking about relationships. One of the things that I love most about you, Ron, is that, wherever you are, when I'm back home in New York City in Harlem, just moving through the city, you'll stop and, give words of encouragement and edify. I can remember one time we ran into each other on Fifth Avenue or Madison Avenue. We were, I just think we were standing right in front of the Chanel boutique. And we ended up having like this
Uh-huh.
hour-long like conversation. But the beauty of who you are and the gift that is inside of you is that you're able to listen without judgment. You're able to listen without rushing to put your opinion, or your thoughts out there first. Like you're really listening to what the other person has to say and really trying to find out like the why they feel this way, and to tap into, that frequency and that understanding, and I know for me, when I come to you, it's a safe space. Number one, I know it's in confidence. It's not going to leave, from my mouth to yours ears, and that's it. And God, but you are listening and you're able to offer up, sound advice and sage really without judgment. Like I can come to you with whatever about whatever. And there ain't no judgment, man. Like there is no judgment, you know.
Well, I will adjust that slightly, because this is something that I think is a bit of a misnomer. I do judge. I don't
Ooh,
condemn.
ooh,
See,
ooh.
judgment is necessary for discernment. If you're
Okay,
not
gotcha.
judging something, you have to really judge it based on what it is that you believe. So the issue is not the judgment, it's in the condemnation of it. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So it's a lot of what I do is I'm spiritually based. What I try to do is, and I've spent years of trying to do it, is to balance my logical mind with
Mm,
my spiritual being. you know. And there are times when I get into Ron and I have to stop and go, wait, hold up. This is Ron giving an
right,
opinion. Back
right,
up and let me
right.
settle into something greater than me, and try to just kind of try to tap into the spirituality, because I like to say that I have a balanced mind of logic, spirituality, and faith. You know, I need those three things. And anyone who's going to listen to me, that's going to be the foundation from which I come. And it doesn't have to be a particular faith. The
Right.
first thing I want to do is understand, what do you believe in? What is
Yeah.
your faith system? Because that becomes the measure by which we structure everything, and my thoughts are structured by. And now I can then use my logical mind to balance those things out. It's far more simplistic than it sounds. I think I'm making it sound
No,
a
I
lot
love it.
more.
Logic, spirituality, and faith.
Yes. Yeah.
Logic, spirituality, and faith. Ron, we're at a point in our human experience right now with there's a shift that is happening in the
Mhm.
world, with COVID-19, with Black Lives Matter, with Black men and women really trying to, love one another better, differently, expand in our relationships. We're trying to find our way back to each other. What do you think, honestly, is the chink in the chain? Like, what is the breakdown as to why Black men and women are having a hard time in our relationships with one another, in our partnerships, in our romantic relationships, in our marriages with one another? Why do you think that this is such an ongoing issue and concern? I know when I talk to my sister friends, who are my age mates, who are ambitious, professional women, educated women, it's the same conversation. Like, the pickings are so slim. Black men are divested. Black men believe they have so many options. Black men look at a timeline, they look at the life timeline very different. You can take, a 40-year-old woman and a 40-year-old man, and they are looking at things very differently. Like, what do you think is, again, like, what is the chink in the chain? You hear Black men who say, like, oh, Black women don't have our backs, or they don't support us, and it goes back to slavery. Like, it's like on and on and on. And like, where's the solution? Like, how do we get to one another? How do we get to one another? I mean, the conversation, it's almost heartbreaking to have sometimes. I hear Black women saying, well, Black men aren't marrying us. You got, white men, they are marrying their women. Black men aren't marrying us. They're not building with us. It's like everything is our fault, and you have Black men. I mean, it's like, where does it stop? Where does it stop,
TLVG. So
Jonathan? Exactly.
you've said a lot, right? And there's a lot there, okay? I think for me, let's start with something very simplistic. Have you ever seen a German and Italian hold a conversation when neither speaks the other's language?
I can almost
Rhetorical.
say no, but I can honestly say
Uh-huh.
yes, because I come from the hospitality industry,
Uh-huh.
where we gotta
Right.
understand people of all races, cultures, and backgrounds, and
Well, it's
so,
difficult. Despite the greatest effort, if one person doesn't speak the other's language, there's usually this divide, right? And there is an inherent communication divide between men and women in general. And then let's break that down into dialects that
mm,
further divide Black men and Black women. Give you an example. It may not be so original, but I'll break it down into Martian and Venusian. Men speak Martian. When we speak to each other, we speak a certain language. Women speak a certain language to each other, right? When we cross over, it's almost like speaking German and Italian. We're not understanding each other, right? So
What is, I'm sorry to cut you off, Ron, because
no,
now,
no, go.
guys, get ready, because we're in here now. We are in here. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So what is this Martian language? Like, I get it, men are from Mars, women are from
Right.
Venus.
Let me give you
What
an
is
example.
this? Okay.
Let me give you an example.
Y'all look at my posture. I didn't change my posture. Like, I'm ready now. I'm ready.
All right. So here you go. Guy has a horrible day at work. He comes in, he calls his boy. Yo, man, I had a horrible day at work. Boss did this, da, 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 da. His boy says, yo, man, what'd you do? What happened? What'd you say? What you gonna do tomorrow? That's the conversation man to man. Woman has the exact same situation at work. She comes home, she calls her girlfriend. Her girlfriend says, girl, I'm so sorry you had that kind of day. I can only imagine. How you feeling? You okay? Did you pour yourself a glass? There's care. Her girlfriend starts to take care of her. That's the nature. Now, of course, these are generalities and
Right.
they're degrees, but I'm speaking at the polars, right? So
Right.
now you have a woman who comes home to her man and she says, baby, this happened at work. He's treating her as he would treat his boy. He's speaking to her from a Martian mentality. He's going, well, what'd you say? What'd you do? What you gonna do tomorrow? And she's like, baby, I just want to relax. I don't want to think about it. I want to take. They're not connecting in the communication stage. Flip side, man comes in, talks to his woman. She says, baby, I'm so sorry. Can I get something for you? You want something? How you okay? He's like, I got to figure this out because tomorrow I'm going to be under the gun and da 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 da.
Right.
Well, what we first have to understand is that there is a language divide. And then we have to start becoming multilingual. And it's a conscious thing. I've been blessed that while I am definitely Mars, I've been around women all my life and I love women and I pay attention and I've gained a lot of Venusian. I would not venture to say that I'm fluent,
Right.
but I have paid attention intently to pick up a good bit. So, for example, and let's say I've had a lot of practice and a lot of failure. So you learn a lot through that wisdom. I say all the time, I've either got successes or lessons, right?
I love that. Successes or lessons, guys.
Yeah.
Successes or lessons. I
And,
love
and when
that.
it, and when it comes to this language thing, for instance, my lady now, sometimes I know exactly what she needs. I can tell when she wants a solution. Cool. I can tell sometimes when she just wants comfort. Maybe 10 and 10. But then there's 80% of the time I have no clue. So instead of guessing,
Wait a minute. Did you say 80% of the time you have
80% I may not have a clue. So instead of guessing, I start with, babe, I'm so sorry you had that kind of day. What do you need? What do you feel like? Do you just want to sit in this for a minute and kind of, come here. Do you want just put your head on my shoulder? Here, come here.
Yeah.
Or do you want to
Yeah.
talk about it? And she guides me as to what she needs. And that opens the communication lines. And it's like that on every level. Women are misinterpreting things that men are saying and vice versa. Now, much of this is facilitated from the outside, right? You combine the language divide with a general cultural divide. Gender roles have drastically changed over the last few generations. There was a clear understanding of what men were expected to do in a relationship and what women were expected to do. And there was a clear understanding of what the win-win was. If I provide and take care of the house, if I provide and take care of the house financially, then the woman is going to take care of these things and do this. That was the accepted arrangement. There's an old saying that fair exchange is no robbery.
No robbery. Yeah.
So if two people agree on it, then it works, right?
Right.
But in general, there was this general understanding and acceptance of gender roles. Well, now women are getting out of the house. Women are being CEOs. Women are asserting themselves in corporate environments. Well, interesting enough, many men have started to treat those women like they treat their boys because
And that is to me, Ron, like that is so unfortunate because just because you are ambitious and you are an earner and you're a CEO or a CFO or a CMO doesn't necessarily mean you want to eschew, your feminine, your femininity. Doesn't mean that you want to eschew being in what is a traditional relationship, you know?
you are absolutely right. But you know
Yeah.
what you just did is that you just clarified the disconnect in the between Martian and Venusian. Because see, many men, I can't speak for all, but many men, when they start to respect the woman like they respect their boys that are in those positions, that's how they show it. Many men forget that women still want to be women, that they still have that femininity. It's because here again, they are looking at these women from a Martian man mindset and not a Venusian mindset. And these gender roles have shifted without clear understanding of how to adjust our behavior relative to these gender roles. Myself, I had I've always had high performing women in my life, just incredible human beings, but just incredible successes.
Yeah.
And I remember I had to realize that I would have these women and I'd get all this that I wanted. And then I would be searching for this. You talk about the 80-20 rule, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, I can say that I've been blessed with 90 plus in every relationship I've been in. But
Yeah.
looking for that little bit, I missed a major key about me. With this type of woman, with a high achiever, with a woman who is successful, who is outgoing, who's faithful, that a dynamic woman, there are some things that are going to come along with her. And instead of looking for a woman that has all of it, because it's not going to happen, the same way she's not going to find everything she wants in me, most likely. I had to change my mindset to a degree of being able to recognize, okay, if I want this over here, then I'm going to have to figure out how to understand and live
Hmm.
with this over here because you can't separate the two personalities, right? And when both sides of the coin are doing that, men have to do it for their women and women have to do it for their men because there are just certain additional characteristics that come along with what we want most, that quote unquote successes. There's a lot that goes along with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we communicate it differently. So I go back to, how do you understand the new gender roles, the new shifts in gender roles, the new changing of a win-win?
Yeah.
There's so many different unconventional win-wins now. The old win-win was you get married to a man that brings home the money and the woman takes care of the household. That's shifted.
Yeah. Yeah. What's so baffling to me is, when you talk about, women who are successful and you mentioned your own, like, 80-20 or 90-10%. Um, I know that there's this huge misunderstanding that women who are, ambitious, women who are thought leaders, women who are, just changing the culture, right? That we cannot be soft, that we cannot be feminine, that we, um, you know, there's this, what's the word? The docile, like some men, want a woman who is docile. And that is a word that needs to really be looked at, because I date men and, I talk to them and, they get excited about, who I am, you know,
Mhm.
on some level. And, they love my ambition and, they love that I've been able to like, just blaze a trail for myself in Hollywood and ascend to these spaces, like the Academy Awards and the Golden Globes. But then when we get into the thickness of the relationship, they're like, oh wow, the reality of this looks woo, 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 you know. Um, and so it's just like I really wish more men would really take a look at themselves, and understand that when you have a woman who is ambitious, and super smart and super driven, that she really is like an asset. Because when you look at the life expectancy of so many black men, black men are dying, so much younger, than their white counterparts,
Right.
and so um you want to challenge, Black women because of their ambition and their own and their earning power. But brother, you really cannot do it alone. Part of the reason why, you know, marriage is a partnership, relationship is a partnership, and each relationship is its own individual landscape. And it's for those two people to decide what is going to work for them in that relationship. But it's just like when you talk about like diabetes and high blood pressure, all that stuff in part comes from you feeling like you got to do it all and you don't have to do it all.
Well, personally, I've been face to face with that one. I'm a cancer survivor, so and that gives you a certain level of perspective. And all that you're saying is true and valid, but it's interesting. There's a flip side to that.
Please tell me the
Some of
flip
the
side, Donovan.
some of the men, like for instance, I consider myself to be a strong guy. I'm a A-type personality. You know, I go after it.
Yeah.
But I also have I'm very much in touch with my feminine side. I
Mm.
mean, I think most guys and most women who know me would consider me pretty much, kind of a man's man, right?
Right.
But I'm very much in tune with my feminine energy. And that wasn't by accident. It took years of cultivating that, learning, and many mistakes. I got tired of
And I
going,
like to
why am
call
I?
that, pardon me for interrupting you there,
No, no,
Ron,
no.
but I like to
Mhm.
call that not just feminine energy, but just emotional intelligence, like emotional intelligence.
Well, but I'll challenge you on that one
Okay.
because why isn't it emotional intelligence when women don't understand the mentality of men? This is that
Okay,
language deal.
fair,
I mean,
fair.
it's not fair for the German to look at the Italian and go, you need to learn German, versus the
You guys
Italian
see
going, well, you
why I
need to
love
learn
this
this.
man. You guys see what is happening here. This is us. This is what we do. This is what we do. And this is why, again, I'm speaking today with someone who is very near and dear to me, Ron Donovan. Most of you guys back in New York City, know him as, Ron Donovan of Ron Donovan, shoe wear and his accessory line. And he is now coming into this space as, a life coach, soul strategist. And I'm just super excited to have him on Black in America today to really talk about, how we can bridge the gap, the communication gap that exists between men and women, but more importantly, Black men and Black women. So Ron, continue on. We were talking about, feminine energy versus what I was saying, emotionally intelligence. He called me on a point and now he's just continuing to expand about that. So go ahead, Ron.
Well, I think the key to understanding, and I pride myself on being kind of a voice of reason, a provider of perspective, a developer of direction. and most importantly, a facilitator of hope and faith, right? All of those things are important. And the perspective for me is empathy, because we all are wounded from our side. Black women have their feeling about Black men, and Black men have their feeling about Black women. And until we can start having empathy for each other's positions, not just men to women, but women to men. And because I honestly believe that we love each other.
Of
There's no doubt
course,
in my mind,
of
sisters love brothers
course.
and brothers love sisters.
Please, please, yes.
It's interesting that I think the large majority of relationships, brothers are choosing sisters. It just is. It may not feel like that for the sister who's looking for a brother to commit, but statistics are very clear that the majority of relationships are Black and Black. You know, brothers are choosing women. So, and as much as it's difficult to hear, there is a divide on the number of women, available women to available men, particularly when you start getting into college educated at a certain social economic level. It
Right.
just is, right? So one of the things that I really focus on is speaking to what I would call, and I don't know if I hope this is the correct term for many women, but mature women. Those
Mhm.
women who focused on a career, maybe they were married early, you know, but maybe they were divorced, focused on a family, and now they've gotten everything kind of situated, but now they're looking to get back into a serious relationship, right? Well, I think there are circumstances that are unique to that. The fact is, you can't actualize any outcome until you understand the parameters and what you're having to deal with. What am
Mhm.
I starting with? The fact is that most women like you are dealing with a limited pool of men that all of you kind of want.
Mhm.
And that pool is defined by, to a large degree, what society is now telling us are good men. So there are a lot of angles that I kind of suggest. The first thing is to evaluate what exactly is a good man. You know, I've heard there's been a lot of talk about high valued men, six-figure men, and all of this stuff, right? Well, there are a lot of really good brothers who may not be making those kind of numbers, but as you said, maybe it's not you supporting them directly in their business per se. Maybe
Mhm.
they're supporting you.
Mhm.
Maybe it's all about values and mentality. You got a cat that may not be making six figures, but he understands savings. He
Right.
understands he understands the importance of investing.
Yeah.
Understands all of this stuff. So now this is someone who shares the same values that can become a partner, because you could find another cat that's six figures who's a spendthrift that is just blowing his money, and you look up and it just not working.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
I
think
mean,
the key is,
it's all
first of
very,
all, truly evaluating what are the important characteristics.
it's all very interesting. Because when I look at men, some men, I don't want to make a sweeping indictment here, but when I look at, some men who are earners,
Uh-huh.
right? You know, there are a lot of men who are these so-called earners, or they have a position in society, and they're not necessarily looking for those women who could match them, right? They're not necessarily looking for those type of women. I can't tell you how many times I have seen men who, are these big earners, and they have, a woman who is just a pretty face, who is just a look, what we call like the trophy, And so it's just, I mean, it's just very interesting to hear you say, like, women, want men, who are these earners, because we do, we
Mhm.
want somebody um, who matches us. But then it's just like there are a number of women, that exist in the world who are beautiful,
Mhm.
right? And that is all they have to offer, right? And so they take up a large part of that pool too, who want the who want the men who
Mhm.
are, the big earner, the quote doctor, the lawyer, this high profile person, but they're just as pretty face. They don't know anything about sweat equity, private equity, public equity. They don't know anything about, mortgaging mortgages, real estate.
But
They
I
cannot
did,
recognize if
I got to tell you, that's not necessarily true. That's the challenge now. There's so many beautiful, educated, you know, um, dynamic women. There are. I mean, there's the two are not mutually exclusive anymore. It used to be brains versus beauty. That's
no,
not the
I'm not
case.
saying that. I'm
And-
not saying that. But what I'm saying is
Mhm,
it's just the point that I'm trying to make here, Ron, is that there are a lot of men
mhm.
who will opt out of dating somebody that can match them intellectually and financially, that they still opt for, a woman, who,
Okay. This is we speak from our perspectives, right?
right.
And I try to have a perspective beyond my own. I make a point of trying to look around. I think once again, I'll go back to a statement that I made earlier. When we get outside of our situations,
Hmm.
there are, it feels that way. I understand how that could definitely feel that way. But
Right.
then I look at a lot of the brothers that I know, and I look at who they're married to and those women, and they're not the trophy wives, quote unquote, so to say.
Right.
You know, um, but it goes back to again evaluating what is the right mate. And I'll use a business example a bit, right? Most people, when they start a business, they're looking, I need investment capital, right? I need to get some money, right?
Right.
Well, one of the things I learned early on is that you can get money, but what do you do with that money?
Mhm.
Sometimes it depends on what you need in your business. Sometimes you need intellectual and human resources more than you need that money.
Whew.
Sometimes you may not be able to get somebody to invest dollars in you, but you may be able to get them to invest that marketing expertise or that production expertise that you normally would have had to spend money to pay for. So it's hard to go and ask for a large sum of money sometimes, but it may be easier to find those places where I can get those other things that I need anyway.
Right.
It's kind of repackaging things a little bit and changing your paradigm slightly. And I'm by no means talking about settling. Sometimes we still want to get to here. We just may have to come from here versus here.
I
And look
understand
at,
that.
you
I
know,
understand that.
everything I do kind of starts with the individual. First of all, we can speak in generalities all day. Every man and every woman's situation is unique. So whenever I start to spot, when I start to talk to you, I'm going, okay, so where you at? What's happening with you? What's going on with you? What are you looking for? What,
You're a thorough accountability partner. Again, you guys, Ron Donovan, soul strategist. I'm speaking with today somebody who is a solid part of my team, just sharing what he does, the services that he offers. I will leave you his website at the end of this interview. And, he's one of the best out there. I personally endorse this man. There are a lot of people who are saying that they're a life coach and they can help you. And, they don't have anybody really standing up for them, saying that they are in fact capable of doing those things. Well, Ron has encouraged me to take risk, to really think outside of the box. And, he has helped me become, one of the, I'm going to pat myself on the back, one of the baddest entertainment journalists, out here in the Hollywood space today. So Ron Donovan, Soul Strategist, is who we're speaking with right now.
Can I tell them what I call you?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ron.
The talented one.
The
That's
talented
my
one.
nickname. The
Thank
talented one.
you.
But
Thank
you know, it's interesting. I'm flattered that you consider me part of your team, but you're a sister, and I love you dearly. But more importantly, it's a mutual exchange.
Yeah.
To me, we use that word coaching, but it's an exchange. It really is an exchange because, I'm constantly inspired by your energy, your drive, your audacity. I'm like, I've sat on doing this for years. I just kind of, people have mentioned it and I kind of pushed it down. It wasn't until this one gentleman mentioned it, and it just happened during the time of COVID that, I had a little bit of time to pivot, and everything kind of happens in its time, I guess. But it's long story short, I get as much from you as I hope that you get from me. And that's real. So, and I believe any relationship like this has to be one of exchange. It can't be one-sided. And not everybody is going to like the way that I move, or the things that I say, or how I say them. So it really is about finding someone that you connect with, and I think one of the reasons why we connect and why people connect with me is that I'm pretty open about my successes and my failures, because I understand what it is to fail. And I understand what that means to glean wisdom from the perceived failures, you know? So I think my gifts are often more the knowledge that I have that's just, and not that I'm so brilliant. It's that I've just been through enough, what do you call it? Iterations of things that I've just kind of gone, okay, those don't work.
Yeah.
These are a little more, productive. So, we move forward.
Listen, Ron, you're definitely it's your time. It's your time. It's your time. In this, like I said, in this climate, of COVID, and the paradigm is shifting, and, people are now really beginning, and it's so unfortunate to see the currency of the Black experience and the currency of Black voices. Anthony Hamilton just dropped a brand new single with Tamika Mallory called, Mercy, about have mercy, on the Black man. What are your thoughts about that? Like having mercy, on the Black man. Do you think that there isn't enough mercy on him? From the perspective of Black women, do you feel like it's not enough mercy, on the Black men, just coming from, a worldly perspective?
Okay. I would say definitely not enough mercy from a worldly perspective.
Right.
I would say that, as I mentioned before, I believe that Black women inherently love Black men. Okay. I think that there has been an asserted effort to divide Black men and Black women from the beginning of our existence on this continent, when we were taken out of Africa, right? So I think despite that inherent draw to elevate Black men, there's still that underlying, I can't trust them. I can't rely on them. So I've got to do myself. I've got to take care of it myself. And in taking care of it myself, sometimes there can be a loss of empathy for what the Black man goes through versus, and that's not to say sisters go through, sisters are some of the most undervalued in this world, all right? But it's different stuff. Ideally, when Black men and Black women figure out how to partner,
Mm.
there are spaces that Black women can maneuver into that Black men cannot. There are things that Black men can do that Black women cannot. And when we start to sit down and go, okay, how do we build a plan around each of our advantages and our positive contributions to the collective?
Yeah.
That's when, and there are couples like that. There are a lot of there are a lot of Black couples like that, you know. But unfortunately, we buy into this fake news that, you know what, Black men ain't this, Black women ain't that, and it just starts to perpetuate itself.
I don't think it's fake news. I think women speak from their experience, you know.
Not
I
not
just
fake news in that sense. Let me
yeah,
clarify.
yeah,
I, we make it real.
yeah,
It manifests itself. It becomes. It starts to add on. I mean, over
right.
time. And make no mistake, it works both ways. For every woman that's sitting there talking about being let down by a brother, there's a brother talking about being overlooked by a woman. So
Well,
each
yeah,
of us
I mean,
has.
it's just, forgive me for cutting you off, but
No, no.
it's just that it's such a sensitive space because,
Mhm.
as a Black woman, working in, the Hollywood space, which is, it's male dominated, it is, white male dominated, it is white Jewish male dominated, it is white Jewish gay male dominated, right? And so, um, there's just a lot there that as a Black woman working in Hollywood that I contend with on a day-to-day basis, and very rarely do I feel like, I have an ally. And very rarely do I feel like I have an ally, who is Black and who is male, and I know women who work in corporate environments where they feel like we all feel like that there's no women's club. There's a boys club, like you go to you work, for example, Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, and there's a Black woman there. But as a Black man, you still have a boys club. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, that's not necessarily the case.
know?
That Black men are challenged in those environments just like Black women.
What
Um,
was
and,
Reginald
and
Lewis's
and
quote?
often and
Um,
often in the sense of, again, it's an individual situation. What we're missing here is that if we stop looking at who's more diminished and start looking at how can we help each other and why we have been separated. One of the things that just irritates me to no end is everyone starts, when we start talking politically, right? People go,
mm,
well, we're not a monolith. And I'm going, we've allowed people to tell us that we're not a monolith. What we have to start doing is find subjects that we can be monolithic behind.
mm.
Let me say that again. Find commonalities that we can be monolithic behind and support each other. Case in point, it is my perspective that one of the
Wait,
beauties of the Montgomery bus boycotts, you had very wealthy Black folks who were contributing to that boycott. They didn't ride the bus.
mm,
You know what they did? They rallied behind the understanding that no matter what I have, I can be yanked out of my car just as quickly as somebody can be yanked out of the bus. If they understand that commonality, then they understand the strength and the necessity to help the brothers out, right? But we talk about white privilege. One of the big issues for us is Black privilege. It's amazing to me. I understand white privilege more clearly by some of my peers. I'm looking at Black folks who have been college educated. The families have been college educated for maybe 2 generations.
mhm.
I look at the level of entitlement and expectations and that we have, right? The privilege that we want. If we can feel that way after a few generations, how do we expect a people that's all they've known to behave?
Yep.
So The first thing
Woo!
that we have to understand is, therefore, for the grace of God, go I. And again, roll back into empathy. I've been blessed, but now it's how does the old saying go? In the winter, the wolf, the lone wolf dies while the pack survives.
Mm,
And and other demographics of society have convinced us that there are limited spots in their pack, and therefore those wolves that get into their pack tend to turn their backs on the rest instead of basically holding tight to their pack. Does that make sense?
no, it makes perfect sense.
So
It makes
we've
perfect
got
sense.
to we've got to start understanding that it wasn't let's just demean the black man, or let's just demean the black woman. It
Right.
was, okay, let's pit the light skin against the dark skin. Let's
Woo!
pit the house versus the field. Let's pit the strong versus the weak. Let's pit the young versus the old. Every dynamic,
All of that.
there was
All of
there
that.
was an asserted effort to create cracks. What we have to stop doing is buying into those cracks, and to go that, you know what? We're all getting played. It doesn't matter who appears to be getting played more. Let's figure out how we're going to come together. What assets are you carrying? What
Mm,
assets am I carrying? I mean, this conversation, you know, is a beautiful thing. You know, your wheelhouse is something that I never really have. This whole public speaking thing is kind of new for me, so I'm
you're
working on it.
amazing. You're doing
Well,
amazing.
I'm trying. I'm just following. It's easy when you got a great lead.
Oh, thank you.
And but
You.
I think this type of willingness, the level at which the people that you're interviewing to take the time to interview me,
Mm,
you know, that's that's where it starts.
yeah.
The support, you
Yeah.
know, that's what we have to do. And
It's collective
slowly,
work.
yes, and
Collective
slowly
work
those
and
divides start to
responsibility.
to 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 kind of
Yeah.
narrow.
It's collective work and responsibility. You know,
Absolutely.
I made a promise, to myself that at every level of my career that I would always, reach back, but more importantly, to never forget, who my true friends and who my true allies and where my base is, and the community of Harlem is my biggest support base. There's Cheney University, where I'm a very proud alum. There's my hometown, Chester, PA, right outside of Philadelphia, which is a big base. And Harlem, USA, is a part of that big base. When I walk those streets of Harlem, people know me by my name. They call me my nickname. They have nicknames for me, red carpet, whatever. But I know that I am loved and I am supported, I am nurtured, I am protected, and that goes a long way. That goes a long way, and Ron you are a part of that. You know what I mean? You are a part of that, and so it's just like I owe it to the collective.
Well, I am very grateful. I tell you, that's a part of privilege that a lot of people miss. A lot of people associate privilege with money and
Mm,
those connections, but some of the basic privilege is just not having to overcome, can I actually do this? Is
mm,
this available for me? And even with all the successes that I've had and other people, I've watched other people, watching you do what you do
mm,
makes me go, reminds me, tenacity,
mm.
tenacity. Stay in it, stay focused, keep working. Yes, because I can, it's so amazing. I can give advice in the morning and sometimes need the same advice in the afternoon. It,
That's
it- you
human
know,
nature.
it is because what happens is your nose gets next to your mirror and your perspective narrows. But the more you can detach from that emotion and step back, the wider view that you have. And sometimes I need, that's why they say therapists need therapists,
Ooh,
you
ain't
know?
that the truth?
And, you know, it's not that I think that I know so much. I think that I have just gotten to the point where I'm open to sharing.
Yeah.
I'm open to sharing. And, and, you know, I've got a bit of a technical background. You know, I'm a graduate of Georgia Tech. So I think very logically, you
Yeah.
know, but, you know, and I'm also 52, 48 left brain, right brain. I'm almost right down the middle. So I have that creative, and it's interesting. I tell you, one of the shifts that happened with me over this COVID break is that I felt like I had imposter syndrome with my Ron Donovan footwear and accessories business, right?
What?
I make
That
incredible
imposter
products.
syndrome is so real, boy. That imposter
Absolutely.
syndrome.
Absolutely. I make such great product. I've
Who
got
you
a
do?
lot of people wearing my stuff, but I still always had this thing of anybody telling me that it was not up to par, right? And then I started to think about it. And there are three things I think entrepreneurs need for their venture. They need a gift, they need passion, and they need purpose.
Mm,
And what I realized that I had kind of lost my purpose with Ron Donovan. People would ask me what was special about my products, and I would give this eloquent, you know, description in the back of my head going, it doesn't serve man. It, I, I, I'm not serving man. It's superficial. All these kind of
mm,
things,
yeah.
right? Because my purpose, I felt was more human, and I didn't feel like I was serving the human need. Well,
Wow, that's
what
interesting.
is interesting is that with the soul strategist, I now have what I feel to be a gift. I have a passion, and I've found my purpose, right? So what has happened is by finding my purpose with the soul strategist, it now allows me to not feel guilty by doing the Ron Donovan business. I'm reinvigorated. My
Mm,
creativity has skyrocketed because I didn't find my purpose with Ron Donovan per se. I found it elsewhere. But now what's interesting is now I see the connect between the two
I was gonna say, yeah,
because it's still about, you know, before it's about inside outside. Ron Donovan helps you reflect what you feel on inside. The soul strategist helps you build what you feel on the inside.
right, right, right. You
You
know what?
know, you
I want you to watch Ma Rainey's Black Bottom tonight.
mm,
Now, the critical scene in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom
mhm,
is about shoes,
mm. Oh yes, yes.
the black man and his shoes.
Uh-huh.
So there is a direct connection to Black people and our appearance and what makes up that appearance.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So we have to do another conversation like this after you see Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and it really has to be about Ron Donovan, you know, your shoe wear company, because I think
Absolutely.
you're going to have a very you're going to have a very interesting take when you watch the late Chadwick Boseman
Mhm.
as Levy and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is streaming on Netflix right now.
Right now.
Right now. You know, so as we wrap this up, Ron, I want to say that I think you are amazing. You know, I am proud to call you my friend. I am super excited about what is coming down the pipeline for you. And, you know, for anyone who is having a difficult time, you know, making a pivot in this COVID environment, who's feeling the pressure because there's so many pressures like Oh, you got to have a business when you come out of COVID. You got to do this when you come out of COVID. You know, and some people don't have the resources. Some people are facing eviction. Some people are downsizing. You know, like I'm trying to downsize. I'm trying to figure out, you know, how I'm going to make it through 2021. You know, what is some advice that just you can just offer to the collective, you know, as a soul strategist, you know, as the outcome actualization coach, to help get us to, you know, the second phase of COVID-19?
I think the first thing to remember is that the only constant is change,
Mm,
evolution, right? The definition of personal evolution is moving from one state theoretically to a better, stronger, higher state, right? And every day we have is an opportunity to evolve, okay? So it's like I'll go back to that March epiphany I had is instead of looking at all the negative that was transpiring, we have to start looking for opportunities and
mm,
looking at what it means for us individually, not worried about what other people are doing, but look at our own situations, even in our losses. It's interesting because I realized during this time that I had to release any fear of loss,
ooh,
whether it be loss of relationship, loss of business, because tomorrow's not promised.
wow.
I had to live and focus on today and build from there. So, perspective, keep a forward perspective. There's an old saying, and I love it. When you're going through hell, keep going, because that's the place you want to stop. And right now, I think that's apropos.
Wow. Wow. Well, Ron Donovan, this was an amazing afternoon. This was an amazing interview today. You are my last interview today. And this was perfection. This was perfection. Ladies and gentlemen, again, Tanish Laverne Grant with blackinamerica.com. I had the opportunity to have an in-depth conversation with, you know, someone very near and dear to me who is a serial entrepreneur, life strategist, the soul strategist, the outcome actualization coach, Ron Donovan. You can, you know, find out how to book sessions with him at rondonovan.com, correct?
No, it's actually RD, the soul strategist.
Oh, are you? Go ahead.
RD, the soul strategist.com.
Okay, RD, thesoulstrategist.com. I will leave his email at the end of the interview when I run it. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being so loyal to me for the past 7 years. I have about over 70,000 blog subscribers on Black in America, and you guys keep me going, and I do it all for you. So thank you so much for tuning in again. Good night.
Thank you, darling. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ron.